afternoon. So I've just been here to see the artwork of Charles Suggs. That's it. And I just want to welcome you to explore his art. I think it's so interesting. And he's going to not only be here to allow you to see the wonderful work that he has here, but also to give you a lecture on his strategy for how he's done his work. I was just so impressed with everything that I saw. You're a native of Massachusetts?
Actually, no, New Jersey.
New Jersey, okay. And you went to what university here?
UMass Boston.
UMass Boston. I used to work at UMass Boston.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And Boston University. I got my MFA at Boston University.
Okay. So I asked a question in case anyone is interested in purchasing anything. Anything here for sale?
Oh, sure, talk to me.
So, you know, one of the things I just have to say about artists, you know, that they make their work by their money, by their creativity, their energy. And we just want to just say thank you for coming here and being a part of our community today. And we'll just wait and listen to you talk about your work, and maybe someone here will be interested in purchasing something for you. Okay. So just sit back and enjoy. Do you want to say anything?
I guess I should say a few words. This has just been amazing. We've been working together for a couple of months now, really, to get everything in place. And when Charles sent me an email and said he was available, I thought, wow, that's awesome. And the work, as you look at it, is just absolutely incredible. So I'm sure you're going to enjoy his speech. And it's more than a speech, it's his being that's going to be exposed, as we're looking at it being exposed in the artwork. So I give you entree to your thoughts. We'll look forward to hearing what you have to say. Thank you.
Okay. Can everybody hear me? Good. I want to thank all of you for coming out today. I really appreciate it. And it's such a nice day, and you could be outside doing something else, but you're here. So I really appreciate that. And thank you to Faith and Lauren for all of their help in helping me to put this up over the past few months. It was, you know, they have a lot of patience, and they helped me out with a lot. So I really appreciate everything. So, with this body of work, you know, everything started off, well, it all began with the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, and everything changed for all of us. I was at BU at the time, finishing my second year of graduate school, and just getting everything all started up. I was working on the video Shadrach that's playing in the back there. And I had been traveling, well, it's not playing now, it's actually a bunch of other stuff too. Shadrach will be, it's up there too. And I had been traveling back and forth to Montreal and other places to do research for it. And then all of a sudden in February, everything shut down and I couldn't travel anymore. And then I had to leave my BU studio. And so I lost use of all of the materials there, the presses, the printing presses, their awesome computers and everything, and had to move everything into my one-bedroom apartment. And I was thinking, well, how am I going to make art? What am I going to do? I was like, I'm not going to have any work to do. And so I first started off by, since I like to make prints, as you can see, I lost the use of a printing press. I figured I'd try a gel plate, one of these little, just a gel plate that you can put the paper on and lift off and have your image instead of running it through a printing press. And I went to Blick and priced it out, and they were all just way too expensive. You know, an 8x10 was like $40, and I wanted to do bigger work, and the largest they had was 16x20, and that was over $120. So I said, forget it, and I ended up making my own with gelatin, alcohol, and vegetable glycerin, which is basically the same thing as that's in gummy bears. And you mixed all that together, and I was able to make a large gel plate and able to start creating some of the works on the wall over here. And so that helped me, to create some work throughout. And then I started thinking about other things I could do, and that's when I began to use candle smoke, which is all the other paintings and drawings that you see around you. And just to backtrack a bit, I had first saw that technique in South Africa when I went there in 2018. I went to Cape Town and went to the Cape Town National Museum. And I saw the work of Diane Victor, who is a pioneer in using candles for drawings. And she's also a fantastic printmaker. I highly recommend you look up her work. But I first saw it there, and I was like, wow, it blew me away, just how sensitive the media is, and how delicate it is, and actually very fragile. And that struck me then, and I started thinking about it at home. And so I started off with a few small pieces, of paper, some copy paper, and that was a bad idea because that goes up in flames fast if you start using that. And so I knew I had to use something heavier, so I started using some really heavy Reeves VFK paper and canvas. And I primed some canvas with either gesso, or some of it I did oil priming. And what I will do is I have the canvas at an angle. Sometimes I'll set it up with a string from my ceiling, and just to make sure that it's at an angle so that the candle can burn upward and the soot from the candle can deposit onto the canvas there. And it starts off very slowly, but after a while, it just builds up really fast. And each of these, I'd say, they took about 1.5 candles each to make the big ones. And, just regular paraffin candles. The cheaper the better, because they give off more soot. If you get like the really environmentally friendly ones, you won't get any soot. You'll just get burned on the paper because they actually clean the air around them. But I bought some cheapos, and they just really mark up the paper and really soot it up, and then I remove from that. It's a combination of just take away, add on, take away, add on, until I get what I want, and then I can go into it. And that's how I did all of the smoke drawings in the back there, and they go pretty fast. And I thought they were a very good pairing for the things that I was thinking about. When I do work, a lot of the work I do, it's usually tied to something that happens. Something that happened around the U.S. And in this case, it was the many killings of black men that we read about, and the protests of 2020. And a lot of this work is in some response to that, because I thought the medium, and I was thinking about the people who were being hurt, and I was thinking about these men who were, they're so vulnerable. And it was vulnerable to be a black man in many of these situations. And I was looking at the medium, and I'm like, this medium is very vulnerable. I put it onto the paper, and you can just remove it so easily. I can't spray fix it because it will blow it away. You know, the slightest fingerprint will mar it, and you can erase it either by purpose or accidentally. And I was thinking this is just a metaphor for what I was thinking about, the sensitivity and the fragility of being a black person, but particularly in what was happening then, a black man who was just perceived as big and dangerous, or just stereotyped as that, but at the same time is very vulnerable. And I thought being that was very vulnerable, so I started to make these pictures, and they're not of the people that happened to. It's mostly my family members. You see some of them look like me. My nephew is the main character in a lot of these. Him and his son are the ones in the back there, and the baby, him and his baby. And I just started making those, and I just looked at they were, you know, some of the medium just fit that moment. And the only one that is me is the one called Disquiet, which I keep having you guys turn around, look at your heads around, I'm really sorry. But it's the one that's all the way, the first one you'll walk into and see. That is me, actually. And, you know, that one is, I was thinking about the fragility of people, and I realized I was that too. Because at that time, right as I was doing all of this, pretty much everything, almost everything in here I did this year, starting in probably about February. Well, I was stuck at home. You know, I had nothing to do, and I was like, well, you know, I might as well just crank out this work. And before I knew it, I had a lot of stuff. And but that one was, I realized that I was part of that vulnerability before a different reason due to illness. And not too long after Faith had written to me and asked me to do the work, asked me if I wanted to do this, I was like, yeah, sure. I found out that I was very ill and I needed an operation. And so I had to have that scheduled. And then I finally had it in late June. And I had to recover pretty much from late June to late July. And I remember thinking, maybe I should call Faith and tell her I can't do the show because I don't know. I'm feeling, you know, I don't know if I'll be fully recovered yet, but it was fine. But in that time, I started to make that because I was feeling, you know, I was feeling vulnerable too. Excuse me, I was feeling vulnerable too. And I was feeling like I was fragile. And that was the first time I made a portrait of me. And it was definitely dealing with me. And then I started to explore more with the gel print after things got a little better. And so some of these are coming out. They deal with, some of them are empowerment, thinking about all the Marvel superhero movies that are coming out, and I'm not a big Marvel fan, but I was thinking about, you know, some of the things that are least liked about me or black people. I heard someone say not too long ago when they saw me walking into a room and they were just like, "He's so black," and I was like, well, yeah, you know. And I didn't know, you know, I just realized, you know, sometimes that happens. And I was just like, you know, this was a black person who said it. And I was just like, wow, thanks. But, you know, I kept thinking about that and I was like, you know what would be an interesting superhero? A really black face with the big black lips that no one seems to really like. What if I focus on the lips and just this dark face and the thing that they associate with us the most? Violence. So I used my hands in the gel plate and made an impression and went over it with watercolor, and then I used black ink to just make the print from the gel plate. So now that's going to be a series because I'm going to make a bunch more of those at bigger sizes and just see what comes out of that. And some of them deal with erasure and just a forward stare, you know, just they're very straightforward. I work frontal. Most of the work I have is frontal, face forward, staring at you. And I don't really know why. It's just the way that I work with them, you know. And I'll put my quick notes here. You know, because that's pretty much with those and with the working more and more with the candles. I was and still thinking about the summer of 2020, and even before that. The thing about the candle and the fire and how it can absolutely turn in from something so little into something that's out of control, and this whole idea of conflagration. And that's what I was thinking of with this fire. You know, this, if I'm careless and disrespectful of this medium, of the surface as it is, and with this medium, it can turn into a conflagration out of nothing but a little flame, and it can just burn the whole thing. And I just kept thinking about how so many things like that happen with black men, where it's the simplest thing, you know? Selling cigarettes, or walking down the street and someone calls the police because they think you're weird. Something that small, or a traffic stop, something that little can turn into a conflagration, and they can be killed. And it just, you know, it was what I was thinking of when I started doing more and more of these drawings. And with the hood drawings there, with those I was thinking about Trayvon Martin. And it came to, you know, because back in, you know, I was of the, I fell for the whole idea that I was too dark-skinned to wear a hoodie, because that would antagonize people. You know, they'd be like, oh, you know, something's wrong with him. He should, you know, something's automatically bad here. If someone like me wear a hoodie, you know, a lot of times I would be automatically considered a criminal. And so I wouldn't wear a hoodie out of respect for people. Can you imagine that? Out of respect, I was blaming myself that if I wore a hoodie and someone mistook me for a criminal, it was my fault. And after the death of Trayvon Martin, I was like, the hell with it. You know, that's not right at all. You know, I'm gonna wear a hoodie whenever I want to. And, you know, I'm gonna wear it wherever I want to, and if someone doesn't like it, tough. And so I started making those too, and I figured, you know, because I was looking at photos of me wearing a hoodie, and I figured that, you know, because when you're wearing a hoodie like that, you're also very vulnerable. It could be a vulnerable situation. It can turn into something, it can conflate into something if someone thinks, hey, something's wrong with him. You know, we better check him out, and it turns into something more. And so the flame and the soot and everything, I started to use on that, and just there, it's just hanging on the wall there, it's very vulnerable to anyone who would go by it or touch it or anything. It can mar it completely, and you know, it can be easily destroyed. I think I named one over there. That's a bad dude. It's the one that has a head on the head in his hands. And
Robert, put your hand up.
that's it. Thanks, Robert. That's it. Yeah. Yeah, and again, is where I do a lot of work that pertains to things that have happened in the news that we've heard about. And that one, I was thinking about Terrence Crutcher, who was shot and killed by Betty Shelby. I think it was 2019. And the thing that struck me a lot about that, there was so much that did, that whole situation, was that the helicopter cops flying above, looking down at all of them, and Crutcher walking backwards with his hands up, the helicopter cops were saying, "Be careful, that's a big bad dude." And all of them looked like ants. You know, you couldn't tell how big or what, or even if he was bad. All you could tell is that he had his hands up and he was walking backwards. And yet he was stereotyped as this big bad person from high above, you know, from looking like this big. And I was thinking about him, Eric Gardner, Alton Sterling, black men who are big. They're big and therefore assumed to be threatening and, in a sense, very vulnerable. And again, that was that was another metaphor for doing that work. And again, I think about these people who suffered so much and their families who suffered so much, but I want to make work that touches on that, but I don't want to make work that just shows their pain and their suffering. I don't want to draw a picture of Terrence Crutcher being hurt, because, you know, that's just adding more pain to his family and to his loved ones. But I did want to touch on the fact that I think that being a larger black man and feared so much can also make you very fragile and vulnerable in American society, when you know, so much can be rationalized. You know, and they can just rationalize the violence against you. And so I still wanted to touch on that without, you know, drawing him specifically, or not making him the major subject of it. So again, I use my very good nephew, Rel, to be a stand-in for that. The gallery behind me, these are, so those, just about most of this stuff was done this year. This was done, that was last year, January 2021. Again, pre-pandemic, when I had access to a printing press. And this was a series that just came about, and there was no real, put it this way, there was no real theme or anything behind it. And I was just doing it, and this was before they were framed. And I had them all up at a viewing in Boston, and more than a few people came up and said, "Oh wow, it's a shooting gallery." And I was like, "Really? That's what you see?" But yeah, they were thinking it's a shooting gallery, and I was like, "Wow, that's not what I was thinking at all." I was just, making just very frontal, and it's staring in your face shapes. That's a part of the stare. But it was amazing what the feedback was on that. And people were like, "Is that about black men being, seen as targets in America?" And I was like, "No, but wow, that's interesting that you thought that, But these were from January 2020, And these are just monoprints. The easiest thing, I think, the easiest things you can make. You just get glass and you get whatever ink you want and just draw wherever you want in it. And make sure you know it's gonna be backwards when you print it. But these are just things you can make so easy, so fast. And you know, I just love making them. And the ones next to them are the gel plates. So I had to, you know, when I lost all of that, I had to think about how I'm gonna use it again. And I thought the gel plate was very interesting with the same removal and addition of ink and the dose that were left behind. There's Shadrach. Real quick, that's Shadrach. Yeah. That is a video from 2020. Again, that's the one I had to stop working on. But that is about Shadrach Minkins. Some of you may have heard of them, maybe many haven't, because it's a history that was fairly tamped down on when it happened. But in 1851, the Fugitive Slave Act was enacted. The second Fugitive Slave Act was enacted. And it said that all local municipalities in the North had to assist federal forces in apprehending anyone who was deemed a fugitive slave. They had to they had to help the federal government capture them and send them back into slavery. Shadrach Minkins escaped from Wilmington, North Carolina, and escaped to Boston. And he was working in Boston when slave catchers came to get him and were ordered, and local authorities in Boston were ordered to arrest him and have him ready to go back to slavery in North Carolina. What happened was members of the black community in Boston heard about this, got very angry, overpowered the guards at the Boston courthouse where Shadrach was being held, broke him out of prison, and spirited him away to a safe house in downtown Boston, and then over that course of time of 2 days, scurried him away to Montreal, Quebec, where he was able to live free. Because this was successful, you probably didn't hear much about this. And it was a big embarrassment to the US government, and so that was something that was not talked about much or reported much, and they made sure to tamp down on any resistance to capturing slaves and bringing them back. There's other times that this happened, they sent in a full force of local forces and federal forces to bring them back. But Shadrach was very interesting in that, and that he got away, which is why I wanted to write about it and draw about it. And so I was interested in his life, and that's why I was going to Montreal to trace his steps, because he apparently did fairly well, opened 3 restaurants, and, you know, he did lose them all, but he did open 3 restaurants, and he was able to do very well living not in a US dream, you know, but he was able to live all of that in Canada. And you know, that's a little aspect of history that I caught up on and reading something else entirely, so I was really interested in that. But what also struck me about Shadrach was how his journey is so similar to migrants today. You know, he was escaping an intolerable institution at home, in his home. He had to do an arduous journey to escape it. you know. And then he had to try and make a home for himself in a whole new place that was foreign to him. You know, a place which is basically the same, but except free, you know. And the thing, he had to do it twice. He had to do it when he got here to Boston, then he had to do it again to escape the US altogether. And so I noticed that the Fugitive Slave Act of 1851 that said that local authorities had to assist federal authorities, how much that was, that could be abused, because they also captured a lot of people who were already free blacks and sent them back into slavery anyway. I noticed that law is very similar to a law number 13768, which was enacted by the Trump administration in 2016, which ordered local authorities to assist federal government in rounding up anyone who is deemed to be an illegal alien in America, and forcing them back to a country that they're thought to be from. And when ICE was rounding up a lot of people, that was a lot of what happened there. But a lot of that language is so similar, and I was struck that it was so similar to a law that meant to round up slaves over 150 years ago, that they would be almost indistinguishable. And that was really shocking to me. And that's why I put in the Shadrach video, immigrant plight and the plight of Shadrach are running side by side. And that's why it's a double-sided video. And that's still a video that I'm working on, because I want to go back to, now that we can travel a little better, I can go back to Montreal and just trace some more of the steps of Shadrach, just to see if there's any vestige of his life, or any vestige of the places that he was at. Most likely not. There are some streets that are still there, and I was able to follow along those, but you know, there's still some things in the Montreal directories of old that mention him. So I want to go through and look at more of that too. But you know, that came to an abrupt end in February. But I want to revisit that and add some more to that. And what it is now, it's a split screen on that very big screen, which I gotta give you guys a shout out for. That's a nice screen. Okay, I couldn't find, we didn't have anything like that at BU, and that's fantastic. But eventually, Shadrach will be played on 2 projectors as a double channel with 2 separate projectors and a border that moves. That is a border that is changing shapes and interacting at times, because I think those two, those paths are parallel, Shadrach's life and a lot of lives of migrants trying to escape oppression in their homes now, just like the Haitian migrants that happened very, very recently, trying to escape something that's terrible and arduous journey, and in this case, being sent back by our government, but I digress. But that is still going on. And so I hope to get back to that, to the video making very soon, and visit a lot more. Feel free to ask questions if anyone has anything they want to ask or.
Charles, I know Lucas, raise your hand for a second. We were wondering, what was the order of those prints made?
Oh, let's see. You know, it's funny because at first, this one was first, and they go in this order along this way. This one was a monoprint and a woodcut. The face that's in there is a woodcut. That was superimposed on the model print. There, yeah, the prints go from, you know, first, and these are the ghosts. And then that was the last ghost, but I also added some stencils to it. And that's why the face is coming through on that one.
Charles, what do you mean by ghosts for these guys?
Oh, that's when you know, see how dark this one is? That was the first one. And you can keep running it through with paper and you'll get lighter impressions over and over. And those are called ghosts. And so, and in many ways, the ghosts, I would argue, are more interesting than the first. And then you get to the last ghost, which that one was, which needed a bit more work. So I just decided to go ahead and play with some stencils on that one to see what else I can get out of it. That one too is also a ghost of another one that came out very dark, the one that's closest to me, facing sideways there. And then I went over it with a wash of watercolor. Well, yes?
Did you do that same thing with these?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Those are all ghosts. And one of them has, the very last one has a piece of saran wrap that I put over the face and added some blue. And just to get some texture from it.
I was looking at that over there, that painting, and do different shades of brown and white and anything, or you just do it just so.
Those were just to see, and I'm glad you pointed that out, because that's actually a ghost of this. Another one of the ghosts of this one. And those were just to add texture, because they were used, I was using stencils and saran wrap again on those, just to see what I can get out of that.
So what about the one with like right next to it, like on the right,
Mhm.
the tears?
Oh, yeah, the tears. That one, I was just really interested in lips, particularly full lips of people in my family, and you know, they thought I was weird because I was showing their lips. But I just got really interested in that, and so I started to make monoprints of those, and that's an oil monoprint, and I started to roll it through, and the reason that I called it Tears because I had basically ruined it, because I ended up dropping some Gamsol on top of the oil and on top of the plate, and when I pulled it up, I realized all those were there, and I was like, damn it. You know, I was really angry, and you know, so I was like, this, you know, what I was going for was there, but then I decided to call it Tears because I felt like crying after I messed it up. But then I actually really liked it, and I ran it through a few more times with color, and that's why, you know, I added the brown later.
So with all of the ones with the smoke,
Mhm.
I'm curious about how you get such detail to their faces. Is that from you like erasing it, or do you go in with something else?
No, I just erase. Yeah, just erasure. I use sometimes an actual eraser, but a lot of times I use different paint brushes to just draw in the features, and that'll just lift out so easily. And you know, you can just use your hands to just roll it through.
I was just wondering, which one is your favorite out of all of them? And, or which one do you have the most fun making or have the most emotion in?
You know, I would say it's a toss-up between Staggerly, which is the second one, the tall one back there. Yeah, that's it. And the memory of my nephews over there. That one was, that one just the most emotional to me because that is, I never saw the baby. I've not met the baby yet. He was born in 2019, and I've yet to see him. So that's the one that has the emotional pull for me as far as making that. And it's like, you know, these marks remind me of memory, as ephemeral memories that can just disappear. And I realize I don't really have a memory of him because I haven't met him yet. So that's kind of that one's you know, the one that I feel the most about. I planning to see him this Thanksgiving, so we'll see. But and the fun one was Staggerly, just because it was really big and it was really hard to get that one set up. And you know, that one is a combination of so many things. It's fire, it's water with a spray gun. There's some powder. What is the pencil? Lead, powder, pencil lead, and you know, all of that thrown in there together. So that one is the one that I really probably had the most fun making, as far as really enjoying it. And Staggerly is an 18th century. And that's a historical character from the 18th century. That was kind of like he was a, what was Staggerly? I actually have the book here. It's a really good book called Staggerly Shot Billy. And it's about a character from St. Louis in the late 19th century who was considered so big, so bad, big black guy, that no one wanted to mess with him, not even police. And this character morphed into something that was a hero to many many of the black citizens of St. Louis. There's a lot of songs and blues songs about Staggerly. And, you know, 'cause he's supposedly this big bad dude. And to the white press, he was the big black man. Oh no. And, but it's and I didn't like that because I'm thinking, you know, the image of Staggerly changes so much and the memory is so fuzzy. And so I used that as the whole smoke thing as a metaphor for him. And I read in this book that it is a real character, a real man who went by the name Staggerly or Stack Lee. His name was Robert Lee Shelton, and he did kill someone, but you know, he was reported as this big brute, this horrible big brute, and you know, the police report notes that he was 5'6", about 130 pounds and cross-eyed, and they think he was being bullied, and that's why he shot the guy. But history and you know, and just the press at that time cast him as this giant who was a big troublemaker, and all good people had to keep this horrible black menace out of their environments, out of their homes and everything. But he was fun to read about. Yes?
A lot of your paintings focus on black men, and I was wondering why, and also why did you choose to represent their vulnerability like this?
That was it, you know, just, I was mostly thinking about black men because for some, you know, we're not considered vulnerable, we're considered dangerous. And I was, that's what drove me to it, because I was looking at, you know, just looking at all the news that was happening, and these were people who were considered, oh, well, they look dangerous, we have to use lethal force right away. And in that sense, being big to me and being black, that seemed to indicate that they were vulnerable, more so than being dangerous. Just because people thought they were dangerous, that was a vulnerability for them. And not just being big, but just being black men at the time. And so I used that, and this, particularly with the smoke, that is so, the smoke is so in your face, it's dark, it thinks of, you know, you think of burning, but yet if you touch it, and if you, you know, are rough with it, it damages so easily. and it'll just wipe right off. And in that case, this drawing itself is just so vulnerable to touch and to move about. And I use that, and I just thought of that as a metaphor. Yes?
Charles, the hands, when you buy Tyler over here, the color one, we're assuming that the hands are your hands pressed in, but then other places where there's hands at an angle or three-quarter view, like the one with the, around the, you can't see behind the folder, but around the mouth and other spots. Is that your actual hand, or how did you make that shape of the hand?
I think I drew,
You can almost see like a hand in your fingerprints.
yeah, that was one, I did the tips are mine, but the others is drawn in. That one over there are my handprints that I pressed into the canvas for that one.
In your head?
No. I thought about that, but I was like, maybe not. Yeah.
I was actually wondering that, but you did say you use your hands, right?
I'm sorry, which one again?
The second last and the last one?
This one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did use a hand, I did just press my hand into that one. And then I went over it with watercolor. Yes.
Yeah, based on my questions that I just asked. Like, when it comes to like black women, I feel like we face the same and we're like labeled the same too. But like even down to your family, you know, we like painting your nephews. I was wondering, like, is it because you feel you have like more of that connection as a black man, like even more about being a black man? Is that why you only paint black men?
There's a lot of that to it, yeah. I do know more about that. And the thing is, I haven't seen my nephews as much as I've seen my sisters. And it's kind of weird because I haven't talked to them as much. And so I've been doing more drawings of them just to keep them close. And actually, because I have 4 sisters and I have quite a few nieces that I see a lot of. But in another sense, you know, I guess I relate more because of what happens to black men. I feel like I can relate more with that, with, you know, being judged for wearing a hood or being seen as something dangerous. That's something more that I can relate with other men.
And based on like you showing the vulnerability, I was wondering why the dark colors, you know?
Just because I'm dark, I think of me in a lot of this vulnerability too. And, you know, I just, you know, it's just in a medium that I'm drawn to. And when I draw people, I do like to draw, I've been interested in drawing dark-skinned people and dark features, mainly because I'm dark, and that's what I'm drawn to.
I was wondering, what was going on in your head when you were doing that painting over there with the blue sky?
That was, no, I was just thinking,
Because the title is Land, so I
Yeah.
was thinking maybe you were thinking about maybe your son when he was younger or maybe your grandson.
no. Lamb was just seeming like something in a pastoral setting, you know, and I looked at it, and that's one of the few that is really light. When she was talking about, you know, I draw so many dark people, and everything's so dark, that one had a lot of lightness to it. And I was thinking, it's kind of like a lamb lost, you know, it looks like something that's almost struggling with something or afraid. And so that's when, you know, I was thinking lamb, just stuck out in the pasture. Even though that's Harvard Square, it doesn't look like it, but it's along the Charles River.
Charles, I think Zara had a question for you, Zara.
Yeah.
I just had a quick question. My class had a debate about if this was 4 people or 1 person. Like, we were trying to figure out if the, they loved it, by the way, they thought it was, they were moved, and it was wonderful, so thank you. But we were wondering if this was 4 different brothers or 1 walking.
It's actually one.
Okay.
It is one,
Okay.
yeah,
They won.
in different stages of movement. And, you know, fear, actually, about going to the store with a hoodie.
Okay, we got that part.
Oh, yeah.
They were good, they were really good. They thought it was 1 person, and I thought it was 4 people. And they were like, no, it's 1. And I'm like, so we weren't divided, but that helps, thank you.
Oh, sure.
I mean, that was, everything, there's so many questions, but that was one of the questions.
Yeah.
Gonna tell them that tomorrow.
No, there's some over here that are gonna tell on me.
Charles, also going back to the black, is it also as part of that tradition of drawing with black and pencil or charcoal? I mean, would you not, you probably naturally draw in black and white, is that correct?
Sometime.
You use colored pencils much? or-
Yeah, I use a lot of colored pencils and markers, actually.
So this is very specific, not that tradition of using,
Yeah, I would
going back to
say,
that.
yeah, it's more specific. It's less about it being the medium itself, you know, it does have you know, it is more pointed toward me and dark skin and what I prefer to, just the way I prefer to draw people.
Do any of the candle wax dripped off as like whether it's intentional or not? Cause some of them look like they're like wet, with, like drops on them. Is that candle wax? I didn't look very closely.
A lot of it is water, because I'll
Is
spray
water,
it with some
yeah.
water. For the big one, Staggerly, a lot of the candle wax did fall on it.
Is the one on the right supposed to be part of both? Because it's like a different angle kind of.
No, not really. It was a leftover, and it was you know, it's actually a little, it's different. It's I don't think I put that one on the press, but no, it's not part of these really. But it ended up looking like them. That's what came, and I was like, well, you know, I guess it should be part of it. That one, the one that's brown over there, was part of it. Was part of these, but it looks so different that I decided not to make it part of this series. And plus, it was one of those that people looked at and said, oh, it must be a shooting gallery. So they all come together. Or a lineup. That's what the other day was saying. It's a lineup of some sort. And I was like, no, not really. So I decided to call it gallery. For one big. Oh, yes.
Do you think you can talk about the one on the far right over here next to 3 prints?
Woodblock.
Oh, yeah, that's one of the other wood blocks. That was just reflections of being a mirror. There's nothing really more to that one than that. It's just a passage of time that I was doing and working on in a hotel. I had a piece of wood and I was just cutting away there and trying to pick up the wood pieces before housekeeping came in. Yes?
I really like this one. I got a nice nice thing to represent it. I feel like it reminds me of like the pressure and danger of being Black men in a society that doesn't allow you to speak up in your mental illness. And yeah, the little scribbles in the back really like reminded me of like mental illness.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
Charles has a question here.
Yes.
Oh, I was wondering if you went back into these with any other mediums, or if that's all, you might have answered that one.
Oh, no, it's all smoke.
It's all smoke?
I have others that I'm working on now that I'm combining smoke with silk screen.
And, how do you travel with these?
Very carefully. They're a nightmare. You have to cover them with glass glassine, which is like a slick paper. That's the only thing I found that the charcoal won't come off on. And so I have to wrap them up real carefully, and then I have to box them. I had to box them up like I was shipping them to a foreign country. And they kindly put up all the boxes for me, because I have a bunch of boxes that I put them in.
You did use your fingers or other stuff to make lines in those pieces.
Yeah, sometimes, and I also used paintbrushes and all sorts of other. Oh, I thought someone.
Any questions about the animation pieces? We haven't really talked about these much.
That little bird there, yeah, that's a poem written by Brandy Barron, and it's part of it's part of a poet and painter, animator meet and come up with something. So I just animated one of her poems about Boston.
So with like this piece here, you're making your own work, you're doing research, you're using video, using
Yeah.
photo.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. Doing my own filming. Some of it I did, I had to get some permission to use from YouTube, that's one of the things, gotta be careful with, you grab something off the net and you really don't have a right to use it, so I had to get some permissions for some things. And so to do that again, one of the things I'm gonna do is collaborate with people to see if I can come up with a way to make maybe scenes, or if I need to make a scene or something, I'll collaborate with others just to avoid any kind of conflict.
How long did the whole project take?
I'm sorry?
How long did that whole animation take?
Oh God.
Like months?
It took, I'd say about 3 months to get all that together, yeah. That's including travel and stuff and research. As far as doing the drawings and stuff, I'd argue that could take you a good month. And I'm still not finished. There's still gonna be more done to this one. And all that, it's only like 6 minutes long.
And some of those drawn frames, is that like, I know you're probably drawing, erasing, but 20 pictures, 30 pictures sometimes, right? Is that correct? When you show that movement of them going?
So I'd say more like 100. Some are 100, those are probably like 40 there. One of the things you could do with animation though, and it helps a lot, is if you draw something like that, you have one drawing, just take a picture and then draw over it again. You do that for about 20 times and your drawing automatically has a movement to it, because you never really redraw the same thing. Even if you trace over it again, it's never the same. So that little bit adds a little bit of movement to it, just a sense of movement.
You're saying you're tracing over the same exact line?
Right, yeah.
Not erasing and moving to the right.
Right, yeah, you're just tracing over it. And, or even just for certain sections of it will give it a sense of movement.
Are you on social media?
Yes, I am.
Charles Snow?
It's kind of weird. It's Instagram. It's SGGSCHW at Instagram. And my webpage is charlessuggs.cwsart.net.
I can share that with you guys too.
Yeah.
He has on his Instagram page, you see the gelatin print that he's making. What if you kind of get an idea of what the visual of what that is all about.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Can you spell like Instagram?
Oh, yeah. Let me make sure I spell it right. It's SGGSCHW at Instagram. Tell me if that doesn't work, 'cause I have it here.
Yeah, I got it.
Oh, good. I'm good at
You're gonna get a lot more followers.
I'm good at spelling my name wrong.
Charles, can you talk about your education a little bit for these guys and how you got to where you are now?
Oh yeah, over almost 30 years. I did fits and starts of college back in the 80s. I went to SCAD for about a year, which was great. And then I got into science and went to the University of Georgia and studied scientific illustration. And I've worked with that, and I've worked at MIT for the past 18 years. But I decided back in 2016 that I wanted to go back and do more painting, well, something akin to painting or fine art. So I started back at UMass Boston in 2014. I started and finished my undergrad at UMass Boston. And then I went to Boston University in 2018, graduated in 2020.
With your master's?
Yes.
In fine arts?
Sorry?
In fine arts?
In 2 years.
Yeah, no, in fine arts, in paint.
Oh, yeah, fine arts, yeah, in painting. Yes.
Have you exhibited outside the United States?
No.
Which is the country that you're most curious about exhibiting?
South Africa.
I was about to ask you.
Yeah. Yes.
I was just wondering, so I'm an artist too, and I was just wondering, what's your biggest tip? Because I hope to be an exhibit someday, so I'm just curious, what's your biggest advice you give to any artist kind of starting out?
You will be better than me at some point, I'm sure. You get a better start. I started late. What's the best tip? I would say, you'll probably hear this a lot, try to make art every day, even if it's inconsequential. You know, because again, I came up with all of this within this year, within a few months. And a lot of it started in fits and starts and was very small. But if you keep doing that and you just try to make something every day, you'll find that you are making something every day, and you're gonna make something really good every day. And you're gonna not like things, keep them around, and do them again. And you'll just really get into a rhythm of really making work that you like to make. And that's the most important thing, work that you like to make, that you want to make. So people are gonna say, oh, well, you should do this. Maybe you should start drawing that, or maybe that way. But, just keep doing what you want to make. And you'll figure that out by drawing every day.
You're an inspiration, thank you.
Oh, thank you, thank you. So now I want to go home and draw my sisters after talking. Because I realize, because I do focus on men.
You good? So, John, it's funny, a lot of these guys have never been to a gallery before, and they're all first. But we did